In this episode, I'll be speaking with the brilliant, divine star of 6 Broadway shows and Invisalign expert, Madeleine Doherty.
If you work in the theaters of Manhattan, you probably heard of Nate Patten. And whether black, white, Asian, or Latin, you want to punch him right in the mouth, but please don't do it. No, he's just our Nate, a man of many thoughts he can't abbreviate. But if you like a gay, misanthropic, self-hating Jew, then Patten Disregard is just the show for you. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I was just attending anti-bullying training. That's just one of the many trainings I've had to complete in order to launch season 2 of Patten Disregard. And if you work on Broadway right now, you have to take these trainings too. I want to list for you just a few of the trainings I've had to take in the past year, and I'm not kidding. Harassment training, anti-violence training, gender bias training, diversity training, workplace safety training. This is a real one. Aggressive thoughts training. Let me just say this. I wasn't having any aggressive thoughts until I had to take aggressive thoughts training. And this goes for the entire industry. Can somebody tell me why an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire has to spend more hours in training than an astronaut? Half of these seminars put thoughts in my head that weren't even there. I had to attend a 4-hour training on bullying. I have never wanted to take someone's lunch money more than in those 4 hours. I attended self-harm prevention training. When I heard there was a 100-question quiz at the end of this training, I wanted to punch myself in the face. Do you really think that the handsy guy on the crew is going to attend a gender bias training on Zoom and say, you know what, I've changed? No, these trainings are about one thing only, making sure you don't sue anybody. And before anyone sends me anthrax, these trainings address important topics: racism, sexism, toxic work environments, all real problems that we need to fix. But studies have shown that anti-bullying training actually increases bullying. So how about we try something else? How about using our collaborative principles to work on this together, as opposed to an outsider coming in and training the company? That's superficial. It's surface level, and it creates animosity. By the way, my training for that is next week. I'm sitting here with Broadway actress turned therapist. Please welcome the veteran of nearly 20 Broadway shows. Please welcome Lisa Garcia. If the number's still wrong, isn't it? Every time. So are you, I know you're doing a lot of therapy at the moment. Are you, you specialize in performers, correct?
Yeah, kind of. Yes. The practice where I work, equity therapy, is comprised of almost entirely of ex-performers. So we're like a magnet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are you allowed to, obviously I know, of course, you could never speak about anybody specifically or anything about specific experience, but are you both comfortable and like legally allowed to talk about like the general kinds of things that you're seeing in therapy?
I am allowed.
You can. Okay. So, where are we at right now as far as like we've come back from COVID? We've now been open for like 9 months. What's changed? Like, what are you seeing different in clients in general now that we've gotten a little bit further out of the lockdown period of COVID?
What I see generally is a few things. Self-tape is its own whole new psychological realm of torture.
Oh my God.
And powerlessness.
Okay, talk about this. Actors are being asked to record their auditions at home.
Yes, and the sense of, when I came to New York, I would go to, here come like 75 names that no one's going to know. Like I would go to, no, people will know because this person's actually really hot right now. This is what I'm thinking of when I first came to New York. I auditioned for Wayne Salento over and over and over again. And he could not see. He had to see me. I was a body in the room. I was brand new. There was no reason for him to watch my tape. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so there was agency. I guess I'm just surprised by how little agency is just like a commodity that's getting sucked out of the world.
So you're saying he had to see you, meaning because you kept showing up to audition.
My body was in the room.
Right.
You know?
He was forced to watch you.
He
is what you're
had to
saying.
watch that.
But nobody has to watch this show, and you are right now. But now actors are being asked to do self-tapes.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with self-tapes, but the thing that stands out is really the powerlessness, like that you're just in a room, and also the lack of connection. When you're in a room doing an audition, let's say you're an actor and you sing a song and do sides, you have an experience and you're reflected in the experience by the room.
Yeah.
And so whether or not you get the job, you have a sense, there's like a meal there. There's like a bite to eat.
Right.
And this is like, there's no meal. You're just like in your home alone.
The other thing is a live audition is a performance. You actually you can get a laugh at an audition, hopefully.
Exactly.
So even though it's a weird performance where they don't clap for you and you may not get the job that you want to do, but like you're still performing.
And you poop for 2 hours before that performance. But yes, no, it's
Right.
and it's an experience, so you get something out of it.
Yeah.
It's also, there are some benefits in that people notice that they're like, I was so nervous when I sang that I couldn't really get any sound out in audition. It took me, a lot of, so the nerves are gone, but the experience and the agency is also gone. And like the work session, like I would go into audition for certain people and I would get like a human exchange.
Yeah. The other thing too is that we do a live medium. Theater's live. It's not meant to be on camera. And the truth is a lot of people who are some of our best actors on a Broadway stage actually are just terrible on camera. That's okay. It's why they're Broadway stars.
Exactly.
There are people that do both, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But there's some people that like really just are terrible on camera.
Preaches the stage.
And that's okay. And there's also people that are amazing on camera that are terrible on stage.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. But we're now asking to combine these two mediums, I think.
Absolutely. And it's and also too, we're asking people, like there's literally a new set of skills, a new skill set that sort of bumps certain people ahead. If you're really sort of competent in also the money, the right equipment, the right, it's an investment. And again, like the loneliness of it all, then you send it out into the void and you cannot make someone watch it.
What is this doing to everybody psychologically?
It increases an already a sort of large sense. There's already enough powerlessness in the business. But I think that it's been taken, I know I always want to qualify. It's not like being in the military. I'm not, talk about the importance of,
Yes.
And yet these are human beings and human beings need connection and they need a sense of agency. And it's just been greatly diminished by this process.
Yeah. So you're doing something, putting your heart and soul into it and not sure where it's going to go to.
You send it into a void. It's so lonely. You're alone in your house doing a scene. You tape it. You send it out into the void. And in some ways, it's like protective in that it's like, there's something about like waking up at 7:00 and pooping in your house and then going to Ripley Greer and pooping at Ripley Greer. And like, there's a whole, then there's nerves.
I feel like we're doing the gastroenterology podcast now.
It's 70% of the audition experience. Ask anybody.
So I remember my grandma Harriet, who's now 98 years old, literally, whenever she would write me letters as a kid, like when I would be at camp or whatever, I swear to God, every letter began with, "Dear Nate, I hope you get this." She would always say that. And I thought about that, like her generation.
Yeah.
When you sent a letter, it was like, "I hope you get this." There was no, like, she wrote to her husband, my grandfather, overseas.
Yeah.
I'm thinking every letter was like, "I hope you get this," meaning like you probably didn't get half of them.
That's right.
So, but that's what a self-tape is. Dear Wayne Salento.
I literally feel for that. Like I feel for it. That's
Dear
what this
Wayne
is.
Salento, I hope you watch this.
I hope you get this.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's just dreadful.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm not, it sounds like I'm making fun of it, but I'm not.
It's poignant.
Yeah.
The letter thing is really relevant. That's essentially what I get from my clients.
Amazing. Well, are we going to stop these self-tapes?
No, just like everything. Teletherapy's here forever. Self-tape, there's, I guess, we're going to get eventually to some sort of hybrid. But what do I know? But that's my sense.
I'm working on something now where the first round is all self-tapes, and then the callbacks are in person.
Yeah.
So there is an in-person component to get the job.
Yeah.
But the first round is self-tape.
So hard for new people.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's also hard, honestly, like as a creative person too, like I don't like watching self-tapes. It doesn't, I love the audition process. Because I don't have,
it's an amazing process. It is. It's the best, worst, just like everything.
It's thrilling.
Yeah.
I mean, but a self-tape is just like, it takes all of the spontaneity out of it too.
Oh God. Yeah.
You don't get to, you don't hear a response from somebody and then react. You're just dead in the water.
Absolutely.
Speaking of dead in the water, watch my new show, Patten, Disregard. I'm sitting here with the star of 6 Broadway shows, including The Producers, Les Mis, and Sister Act. Please welcome, straight from prison, Madeleine Doherty.
Yes, the prison that we've all been in for the last 2 years. It has been a prison.
Yes, and show business is a prison.
It's definitely, absolutely. You know what I did during this whole thing where we're wearing masks? I went and got my teeth fixed. I got my teeth straightened.
They look incredible.
Thank you so much. Well, and I went to the dentist, and and I kept going, and the price of it is $6,500 to get this done.
Right.
Invisalign. I was like, you're kidding me. So I was like, I got a mask on. Why don't I do it? And of course, my first visit there to get the fittings for all of these trays that you have, I said, why did they move? Because my teeth moved, so they were like overlapping in the front, and it was just unacceptable. I love playing a crone. I just don't want to look like one all day long.
You waited until you needed to cover your mouth 24 hours a day to get your teeth fixed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And it wasn't affecting my health or eating or anything. Exactly right. So, and he said to me, I said, so why did this happen over the last few years? And you know how they sit on that little stool, and he sort of rolls back a little bit, and he goes, well, sometimes at a certain age, and my eyes just roll back in my head.
You realize this is not a dental podcast, right? Like
right.
We're supposed to be talking about
show
theater.
business.
I don't know.
But
we're
it's just
already the first conversation and teeth. It's like I'm sorry, the dental one. That's your interview tomorrow.
That's right. I got them all mixed up.
Okay, let's talk about your
yes.
Broadway career,
Yeah.
And then we'll get to your medical record shortly after that. So, okay. You are one of the reasons I wanted to have you back on here. You were here 5 years ago on Booked It. It feels like 2 seconds ago, but it really was 5 years ago. And you have one of our highest rated episodes. Like people just loved your interview, listened to you.
Why would that be?
And I said, well, you talked about your teeth.
So
I said, it's been 5 years and we have to have you back on. The truth is, nothing between this has changed. So I don't know why you're back.
I don't know why I'm here. I'm leaving.
But yeah, okay. So, but I do want to have you on here for one particular reason, which is that Mel Brooks just had a book come out. Got the great Mel Brooks. Mm-hmm. And I read it. And there was a chapter about, I know you know this, I'm telling our audience, for those of you that don't know, but I was reading the book, and the chapter about the producers, he's talking about Nathan Lane, Susan Stroman, Matthew Broderick, the usual suspects that you would talk about doing the producers. And sure enough, there's 2 paragraphs about Madeleine Doherty auditioning for the producers. And I was like, wait a minute. What? It is so beyond insane. Now tell me, did you know this was happening?
Well, I did not, but I had 2 friends of mine text me and say, I'm on the train and I'm reading Mel Brooks's book and there's 2 paragraphs about you. And I was like, I beg your pardon?
It's insane.
And he literally took a photograph of it and sent it to me. And I was like, oh, okay. Wow.
And so you got no notice. Mel Brooks didn't shoot you an email and say,
absolutely not. Say, hey.
I mentioned you.
No.
But it's really, out of that entire company, also not just that company, but all the tours of it, it's been on the road. You're one of only, it was him, Nathan Lane, you, Matthew Broderick, Susan Stroman, Katie Huffman, he talks about, but that's kind of it, real. He talks about the designers, but as far as the performers, you were up there with everybody else. You actually told this story on Booked It, so I know people have listened to it, but it's been a long time. So just talk about what happened. Why is he writing about you all these years later?
I have no idea, because the things that we do, and we don't consider them heroic. We just love our work and we want to get a job, and you sort of walk through this labyrinth of if you're going to do the producers of this iconic movie, you're going to need at least one old lady, So that's
you knew that
germ of it.
You thought that going.
I thought you're going to need at least one. So, and the long and the short of it is, although it's incredibly flattering, the actual recount of it is incorrect. Because what happened was I went to the open call, the equity open call, because this was in 2000. In the year 2000. And I came here in 1980 and I didn't get an agent until 2007 because I really didn't need that. I mean, theatrically, I was just out and, pounding the pavement. Anyway, so I went to the venue in my street clothes. And then the next thing that occurs is that they queue you up like 20 people at a time. And I signed up on that list to be like number 60 or so. So I had time to go to the ladies' room and I put on an entire costume of an old lady. Mm-hmm. And I got a wig and a little pillbox hat and a little outfit and little old lady shoes and whatever. And I got back into the queue. And of course, all the girls are looking at me like, oh my God, she's lost it. This is the risk that you take. And I walked into the room at this open call and there was, casting and the stage manager, Steve Swagbaum and Susan Stroman and Warren Carlisle, who I didn't know yet,
right?
And Vinnie Liff and
it's
Patrick
crazy
Brady.
To me that Susan Stroman would be at an open call.
Yeah, and that often doesn't happen. And,
Never.
And I think that kind of some of those days are gone.
They are gone.
They don't really do that anymore.
The Tony-winning director is not at the open call. It's only appointments, which is a disservice. In a way.
I absolutely think because you kind of don't know what you're ever going to.
Yeah, I mean, you see probably a lot of bad.
Yeah,
I mean, you really do.
Right,
in an open call, but you also would miss you.
That's nice.
20 years later. Okay, but go ahead.
So anyway, but I walked into the room in character, and Brad Garside's playing the piano, and he was the best scene partner because I talked to him as the old lady, and I told him what I was going to sing and how I was going to do it. And in the meantime, the entire table of people out there, and they're cackling in laughter. And I was like, this is the desired effect. This is working so far. So I go to the middle of the room and I sing Like a Virgin as this old lady. And it just
killed.
Absolutely. It had the desired effect, as I say.
Right.
And I said, would you like to hear something else? And they were like, no, that's okay. That's okay. And then
Was Mel Brooks was not at that.
No, he was not. But he was at that final
Susan
call.
Stroman was. Yeah.
Susan.
So you went in and sang Like a Virgin, and Susan Stroman was laughing.
Oh yeah, they all like bingo.
It killed. And then tell me what happens.
So then I go back and dance, and they really have it. And Warren was running all those auditions. They really have us dance and run around and do all manner of different things, and because they need you to be really physical and dance worthy and so forth. And then comes the final callback. And in the meantime, Michael Levine and I had been working on a disco medley for the old lady to sing. And he's so genius. And I was like, it can't be too long. It's got to be like under 2 minutes.
Right.
So like lightning, I go through, we put this thing together. And sure enough, I did get a final callback, and I go to the final callback also dressed as the old lady, and I walk in the room, and Mel, and there are like 50 people in this room.
Oh my God.
For this final callback.
It's like a show.
Right. And I was like, oh, who are all these people? And none of them laughed. It was absolute silence through the entire torturous 2 minutes.
It felt like you bombed.
And in your head, and you have to have it in your head. You have to have a laugh track in your head.
Right.
Like this is going to happen here, and this is going to happen there. And then the other thing is you got to be truthful. It's just got to be. So it has to be based in truth in some way. That way, that's your only way to survive a situation like that.
And Mel Brooks was in the room then,
studying me,
so interesting,
like arms crossed. And I could tell what that was. I never made eye contact with him, but I could tell what that was. That was, how long can you keep this shtick up?
Wow.
That was that. How long will I believe this?
Yeah. So it's funny. Your interview with us last time, you talked so much about Mel Brooks. It's like, I'm resisting the urge to just have you repeat all of it because it was always so amazing. But one thing that I remember you said was that he and Tom Meehan, rest in peace, sat in the back counting laughs.
They counted the laughs in the first act.
That they were
once we really got our sea legs and we really got our tempo, they sat in the back at the Cadillac Palace in Chicago and counted the laughs. But you know what? I don't know if I talked to you about this. Oh, I think we have, but like over dinner. But this is this was really interesting what happened, because this is all about Nathan Lane, because he's so brilliant. So we're in the throes of great success in Chicago. We're making changes, and we're about 2 weeks into the run. And I get into the theater that night, and Nathan goes, I got to talk to you. Come on in to my dressing room. And I was like, what could possibly be wrong?
Right, we're killing it. It's,
right. And he said, sit down. We got to talk. I was like, okay, what about? And at this point, my tail's between my legs, like, oh God. But he goes, okay, listen. Everything's funny in our scene, but the audience is in control. We're not.
Amazing.
And I know this light bulb went on. And I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, that it's that a laugh isn't necessarily a good thing if it's in the wrong place.
And it's just, and the whole situation is hilarious. He with his slicked over hair and that smoking jacket and that bad scarf with the pin in it with no jewel in it, and all the iconic, Max Bialystock.
But you have to wrangle the audience, and it's like, and you laugh here, and here. And you don't laugh the whole time, right? It's all about because the truth is, in a play like that, it's the rhythm. The laughter is in a rhythm with the dialogue.
Yeah, totally.
It's like line, laugh. That laugh is part of the wave of it all.
That's exactly right.
And if it's in the wrong spot, it messes with everything else.
Yeah, and Mel is a drummer, so he is all bink, bunk, bink, but he's bump, bump, bump.
Right.
And that is how he writes. So the light bulb went on. I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And so he goes, why don't we try this and this and this, and then we'll get an idea of how that works, and then we'll just work with that. And that's exactly what occurred.
You have this rare distinction of you worked on Broadway, I want to say, for 20 years and did 3 shows or something. Is that right?
Well, it's 17 and 2 shows. I did Les Mis for 10 years. Right. And I did The Producers for 7.
And then Sister Act.
Sister Act was like an 18-monther.
Okay, but that's still not 2 weeks.
And Charlie ran
another year.
That was respectable.
It is. Yeah. I mean, but most people's shows run 2 weeks.
I know.
So it's
or
like
6 months or something.
Or now they run longer now. But I think back in the day, shows really closed. That doesn't happen often now, where something closes the first weekend.
That's
but I
true.
feel like back in the day it did.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the Times would close it if it was a bad review.
That's right. Yeah.
But in any case, you did in 20 years, like just only a handful of shows, which is amazing, actually. But you got to, in that short amount of shows, you got to work with some really good people.
Oh, yeah.
Like you worked with Alan Menken.
Oh, man.
What did you learn, if anything, from Alan Menken by watching him? Or
Yeah, he is, he really knows how to write for women. He knows how, there's something about that, his heart is really connected to that. He really gets those I want songs,
Oh, yeah, they're like Somewhere That's Green, Part of Your World. They're like the best I want songs that exist.
The best. And
that's also, to be fair, that's Howard Ashman who wrote the words.
Absolutely, and there's a great documentary about him.
Yes.
Oh God, I love that.
But I think Alan Menken too.
Oh yeah, Alan really knows. I mean, he knows how to soar that thing, and he understands what those melodies and those chord changes are and what they do to you emotionally. He really.
It's also why I'm so against the idea that you can only write for who you are. Like that, that if you can't write the Jewish song if you're not a Jew, and you can't write the gay character if you're not.
It's crazy.
You can't even imagine what it is to be gay unless you're gay.
It's pretty sure that's not true.
It's why it's so limiting. Like it's like as you're saying, like Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, 2 guys wrote Part of Your World, which like every woman in show business loves that song. I mean, everyone loves that song,
right?
Because it's a truthful, honest song for a female character. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we're old fashioned, but I the idea that you can't write for anything other than yourself, I think, is so limiting. And I hate that argument.
Yeah, that does a disservice to everything and everybody.
And it's just not art. Like it's
exactly right.
It goes against the idea that you have to be something. We've done an entire episode on this show, but I mean, like it's just so absolutely.
Yeah, it's a real silly ideology.
Yeah,
that just won't. That's not what being creative is.
I think so. I agree with you, and I mean, there's a lot of people that would disagree with
us.
I
totally agree, and everybody has the right to all of that, and there may be some truth in it, is that there's an enlightenment here or there, but that doesn't mean that a composer or a writer can't go and sit seriously with their friends who have lost an arm or something, if they're going to write a play about somebody who only has one arm now, that they can glean from that, because there's empathy and there's sympathy and there's, that's what you write.
And there's a human experience that like you could put your own life into the story of another person.
That's what we do as actors. I think that's why I love acting. It's really fun. I love to get into the heart and the soul of who this person is and figure out why they do what they do. And that's even true in an audition, where you get like this, incredibly small version of what the whole thing is. And I find the audition realm a very creative experience. And I know a lot of actors are very, they're so opposed to that. They feel that it's a necessary evil, and that's a really terrible place to find yourself. And it can be frustrating. This is not like, I'm not Pollyanna here. This is can be really frustrating. Absolutely.
Everybody I know that is a good actor and that has, worked on Broadway consistently or done a lot of different things, they all have a healthy relationship with auditioning, and that they don't always love it every audition.
Right.
They don't always want to go. Sometimes they hate it. They get frustrated with it, of course. But all of you, and I'm lumping you into the category, have a healthy relationship with auditioning, where you can find a positive way to look at it as this is a performance, or it's an opportunity to get to sing. I mean, look, if you're doing That's Like a Virgin in front of 50 people, that's the Laurie Beachman. You know what I mean? You're doing it's like you're doing a cabaret.
Nice. Oh my God, that's so nice of you to say. God, she was such a talent. It's interesting, like, what gives you joy? What gives you joy? And you just sort of said something. It's so crazy that singing still really gives me joy. Like getting in a room with people and creating harmonies and getting all these voices together. I really still really love singing.
Yeah. Do you do like, or have you done a lot of workshop development things where things are in process?
Yeah, absolutely.
You have.
I love that.
You're not just because your resume just says, everyone's resume just says
final product.
Yeah,
and
like
I'm such a final product.
But you've been in development of things.
I would much rather be in the development. Do you know what I did all the development of? And this is back in like 95. I did this, and it was maybe bled over into 96. Was that Lynn Ahrens and Steve Flaherty took myself and a group of others, and we helped develop Anastasia for the movie.
Wow,
and we would go, it was like once a month, we'd be in the recording studio, and we would be recording all the different songs that they were going to present, pardon me, to the people that were
to Disney or no, it's not Disney.
It's not Fox. I think it was 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And then they would come back and they say, well, they didn't like this, and they want a man to sing this instead of a woman, that was one of the most creative times that I spent. And I was in Les Mis at the time, but it was so great. They used every aspect of my voice, high, low, stretch, this way, character sounds. It was really fun.
Did you ever hear the story about how at the opening night of Anastasia, the film, that, so Liz Calloway sang the songs.
Right, exactly.
And Meg Ryan
was the voice.
Apparently, Liz Calloway went up to Meg Ryan and said, I just want to let you know I'm such a fan of yours, and I'm Liz Calloway. I sang I'm the singer of the film. I sang the songs. And Meg Ryan said, I told people that I did the singing. Can you imagine?
There's something about
I don't know
that is so hilarious.
If it's either she was kidding and it's the funniest thing I've ever heard, or she wasn't kidding and it's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Absolutely, it's still the funniest thing.
Doesn't matter.
I would love to ask Liz I wonder what Liz's reaction was. And Liz being such a
Liz told the story. I mean, that
she's such a great gal that she would never say, "You have got to be kidding me." She would never be confrontational about it. She probably just went,
it was the party.
Moving on.
They're at the party, so everybody's congratulating everybody, and so people are saying, your singing voice is wonderful. Thank you so much. Not like, actually, I didn't do the singing, and the person who did is over there at the cheese plate.
But no, exactly.
So you,
Yeah.
I saw you do something that we have talked about for years, and we maybe we'll edit this out, and maybe we won't. But you did "Mommy Dearest," the musical, the workshop, and I don't know how much we're allowed to talk about it.
Well,
or what we can,
I invited you to come because
I sure did. And it was 10 a.m. on a 2-show day,
Right, exactly.
and I was like,
I'll be there.
I said I'm gonna set an alarm for 8 a.m. to go see "Mommy Dearest," the musical. Okay.
Go.
Who did you go? Who did you play in it? Because you were in the ensemble, but I don't remember.
I don't even remember the different characters that I played. I
remember it was you. You definitely had lines because I remember you doing little things here and there. But I remember here's the other crazy thing. So it was "Mommy Dearest" the musical, which is when I heard it, I was like, "Is it a comedy?" And you were like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, well, already that's insane." But if it wasn't, I was so upset it wasn't a comedy. But here's the thing: it was. It was so close to being a comedy, and it. Okay.
Absolutely. Well.
And it was written. Sorry, it was written by Christina Crawford,
right?
Who wrote the book?
I don't really remember who wrote the music, but my friend Joe Barrows. Do you know Joe Barrows? He's such a great guy.
Such a great guy.
So he directed it, and he's the one that said to me, "Will you do this?" And I mean, honestly, I remember just before I texted him back, I thought to myself, this could be like the greatest, most hilarious week of my life. I mean,
if they allowed it to be a comedy, it would still be on Broadway now.
Right.
But they wouldn't.
And I thought to myself, I'll bet it's terrible, but I have to be a part of this. I was like, of course I will, Joe. And I was so glad I did. And then I remember being at work because I was doing Charlie at the time, and I said to you have to come.
Yeah, and I went to see it at 10 a.m., and I'm sitting there in a seat, because you got to bring one person each. So it was a small audience.
Right, exactly.
25. It was
we were doing it at NOLA Studios, which, by the way, is closed now.
Yeah, everybody and that's why. Everybody in the cast brought one person, so it was like a very small audience.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting there, just, with my program, waiting for the reading to start, and I hear, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" And I look up, and it's Christina Crawford sitting next to me. And I wanted to say to her, "I should have known you'd know where to find the boys and the booze." But it was so wild. I'm telling you, in my whole life, one of the craziest things I've ever experienced was watching "Mommy Dearest," the musical, next to Christina Crawford.
Well,
it was nuts.
I wanted it to be like Silence was. That was so brilliant, right? What Chris Catelli did with that. That was, and Stephen Binsky and Jennifer, what was that girl's name? What is that great actress?
Jennifer Samard? No,
not Jen Samard.
No.
Oh my God, I can't think of her name.
Jen Harris.
Right, exactly. God, they were all brilliant.
Yes.
And Chris crafted it in such a way that it was just so hilarious and grotesque and real and funny and on occasion commented, but very seldom. It was so great. I was hoping.
They very faithfully told the story of Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
They did it very straight. It's like, we just talked about it, that like Airplane, Airplane really does the romance in Airplane. Like the romance in Airplane, like Julie Haggerty, and I forget the actor's name.
I can't remember
the pilot.
Right.
When you watch, I was seeing it the other day, and it was like, they really do all the emotions of that romance in a very real way. They don't, there's no, when they do those scenes, their love for each other is very real.
That movie is so great. And that's a real lesson in serious comedy.
Yeah.
And just making it serious and playing everything truthfully. And it's just so slapsticky, Even the guy in the tower. I mean, he's this really flamboyant, flippity guy, and he's so hilarious and flipping out.
Right. But the Zucker brothers who hired, they hired only actors who had only done dramas.
Oh my God!
All those guys in that movie, like the pilots and that. They were guys that did like disaster movies.
Right, exactly.
They had never been in a comedy.
Leslie Nielsen and that kind of
Leslie Nielsen had never been in a comedy. He had only done the most these like paint, and he hired, and they saw this script and they're like, get these.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
And they wrote, and that's like, and they directed it and just said, just do your thing. You know what I mean? Don't just play this the way that you've played every other medical drama you're in. And that's why when you watch it, it's the drama really is there. That's why everyone thinks of Airplane as being shticky, but it functions as a movie itself.
That's right. That's exactly right. Oh yeah, that is really great.
Jonathan Demme, who directed Silence of the Lambs, apparently said that the tone on that film was very light, meaning like when they were filming it, there was a lot of goofing around.
Well,
that they were laughing nonstop.
That's a therapy that you need in a situation like that.
He said it wasn't until that they all went, the cast got to come watch it together, that they were like, because no one's memory of it was disturbing.
God,
they weren't disturbed by it the other thing is, the whole thing is just a second away from being a comedy as it is. Like he has the dog, and it's like shtick.
It is a second away.
Yeah, but it never goes there.
I know.
Yeah.
See, that's walking that little tight wire, and that's what you want to do. And you want to do that as an actor too when you make choices. And I'm not saying outlandish choices just for the sake of that, but you really want to be like that sort of edgy. Here's a really funny story. Vinnie Lift told me this story a long, long ago, before electricity, when they were casting Les Mis originally. The cream of the crop were coming in, auditioning. Jeff and Vinnie were bringing in all these wonderful, very skilled musical theater actors in front of Trevor Nunn and John Caird. And after about a day of this, Vinnie said that Trevor Nunn turned to him and said, Vinnie, all of these actors are so tremendously talented, and they have all these amazing voices, and they're so classy. He said, but that's not what we're looking for Les Mis. And this is how he explained it to him. He said to him, we want somebody that looks as if they might have a gun in their backpack. And Vinnie said, and a light bulb went off, and he was like, oh my God, I know exactly the group that I need to call in, and that's
how you got an audition.
I was like 2 years into the show was running, and I got into it.
But that's interesting, because I think that's very smart, which is that if you look at the material, you're like, oh, let's get legit opera, very buttoned up kind of people, but they need that sense of danger.
That's right, and kind of wild and willing to risk, and willing to not be safe, and willing to. And this is who these guys are, John Caird and Trevor Nunn. I mean, you look at Nicholas Nickleby, and you see that energy. That energy is in everything, every frame of that.
It needs that level of danger behind it, otherwise it would be boring. So I hope I can repeat this story. But Jack O'Brien told me this once. He and I were having breakfast, and he was about to do auditions for the new Tom Stoppard play. He was going into audition. So I said to him, what do you look for when you're auditioning a Tom Stoppard play? And he said, well, first I look for actors with an extraordinary facility for language. People who are great speakers. Right. Like people who really know how to own the text.
Right.
He said, that's kind of the first thing. He goes, and then I just hire people that everybody wants to sleep with. And I laughed so hard, and he was like, well, I'm not really kidding. He's like,
no, there is.
He goes, you have to hire sexy people for Tom Stoppard.
Yeah, you do.
He said, because the play takes care of itself. He goes, Tom Stoppard doesn't need my help.
Right, exactly.
He said, the words are there. He said, you get people that can say the words, and then you put sexual chemistry on stage.
That's really smart.
And then he's not saying, obviously, just hire pretty people.
No.
Right. He's saying, enter sexual chemistry on stage in a Tom Stoppard play.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why he won the Tony for Coast of Utopia. And I looked at who he hired. He hired Billy Crudup, Martha Plimpton, people who are very sexy actors.
Exactly.
And I was he said it combats the language, because the play is so dense. You need sex.
I need a little distraction, somebody to take the edge off of that.
Yeah.
And just sweep in and out of the play.
Yeah. And I was like, that just blew my mind.
Wow, that is well, and that is interesting. It is interesting what directors how they communicate with their casting director about, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for. We're looking for an actor who might have a gun in his backpack. I mean, that just says it all right there.
Yeah. But it's sort of the same principle, the gun in the backpack. It's because I know that sounds weird, but that's like a sex quality.
It totally
thing.
is. It's danger and sexy, and it's
not that when I think of sex, I think of guns, but
It's the first thing that comes to my mind.
That's a
But it's something that's unexpected.
Yeah, that's what it is.
A surprise, something that is a surprise.
Spontaneity.
And that's spontaneity.
Yeah.
That's sexy. Absolutely.
So what do you see, you've been acting for a long time. It's incredible. Do you see, like, do you want to act until you're 90? Do you like the idea of doing something else, or do you want
I always do. I'm always up for, like, whatever interests me or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a grandma, I have a grandson, and I've spent a lot of time with him, and I love all of that. I always, and whenever I teach young actors, I'm always like, you really should have a really full life, like somewhere else. Like, go volunteer somewhere, or go work in a soup kitchen, or go, start reaching out beyond what is really known to you.
Yeah.
And, most of them do. Most young actors are like, well, I volunteered, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I sing in the church choir, and I go, I do this and I do that. And I think that's grand. But to answer your question, yeah, because I love it.
Yeah, no, I can tell you. Do.
I really love it.
Right, you're going to always want.
And I'm
to
really
perform.
working. I really work at taking care of my voice, so I'm singing well.
Yeah.
The muscle tone thing that happens when you're older is all very real, and you really need to take care of that.
The kinds of roles that you play and that you've always played, in some ways you have grown into your career. You said,
really close.
Well, especially since you said you auditioned as a 100-year-old woman when you were 30.
Right.
So,
exactly.
It's...
Do you know that I've done that character in 3 Broadway shows?
The grandma. So
The old
producers,
lady.
Charlie.
And Sister Act.
Oh, right.
Which I'm about to do again.
A paper mill.
A paper mill.
Oh, my God.
It's-
Are you doing that same character?
Absolutely. She's just ancient. And then the whole story is that, Dolores brings this life into everybody. She breathes life into that whole convent.
I love Sister Act. I really do. I love the movie and I love the show.
And I've loved everything I've done, but Sister Act is my favorite thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
They're
Why?
nuns because they're cute and they're nuns and they're the underdog. And this unexpected character comes into their life. Mm-hmm. They never thought that there would be any good that could come out of it. And the story is so good.
It is the Music Man, I have to tell you.
Yes, it is. Because she's a little bit of
I think everything is the Music Man. I think
I love it.
I think the Music Man is like, every time I see
Well,
something
it's
that's
the
good, I'm
old
like,
story.
it's the same structure as Music Man.
Right, it's the old
School of Rock is
right.
Music Man. Book of Mormon is Music Man.
That's right.
They're all sort of the same.
all sort of that-
Not exactly. I'm not saying Book of Mormon is not original. Of course, it's
but
brilliantly
there
original.
are concepts, and then there's a redemption part of it, and all of that, right? Exactly.
I always think Sister Act is actually sort of deeper than people give it credit for. I think it's about religion and God and faith and music and like how there's different kinds of faith and different kinds of religion. I think it's beautiful.
And how you worship and everything, and how the nuns were sort of like in this thing, in this mode, and that's why they went into the convent. And then this woman walks into their life, and she takes over the choir, and it does more than raise money for the church. It changes the lives of those nuns.
Yeah.
And if I'm to, talk about the little nun that I do, Sister Mary Teresa, she's old and ready to die until Dolores walks in and everybody sings and everybody dances together and she's rejuvenated.
Is that your take on it?
That's my take.
Amazing. That's awesome. I always think people think Sister Act is like a bunch of singing and dancing nuns, which, let's be real, it is.
Pretty much is.
But it's also about, I think, I don't want to speak for the people who wrote it, but it's about a woman finding God, I think.
She does because
she's an atheist. She doesn't say that. But it's about a woman. It's a woman who's an atheist, I think. And she's
on the edge. And then she realizes that this guy doesn't love her. She witnesses a murder. He's after her. They got to hide her. And then she gets into this place and that she finds that loving other people and helping other people is so critical. And she very rarely has reached out of herself, but that's always been part of her.
Yeah.
And then that convent brings it out in her.
But then the Mother Superior does the opposite journey, which is that she's a woman of God, she's in the church, and starts to realize that maybe there is something, there is another way, there is another way in here. I think
because she really believed that this was the only way to serve God. And then she sees Dolores do this thing. And in a lot of ways it does. It makes her question herself. She becomes jealous and threatened and all of that. And then they make up at the end and they see each other's strengths at the end. That's what I love about it.
It's really great.
People love that story.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the legend of the movie is that they wanted Bette Midler to do that originally, that movie. They crafted it for her. And something happened or she couldn't do it or whatever. And now you look at it and you can't imagine anybody but Whoopi Goldberg doing that. No. There's no way. It's like you even try to slip Bette Midler in there. You're like, it wouldn't work. It just doesn't happen.
Right. Your journey with Sister Act was interesting. That didn't you? Forgive me for saying this. Didn't you not get it the first time?
Well, it wasn't so much that I didn't get it. Was that they were casting, and I was out with 9 to 5, and one of my colleagues got it, and I was crestfallen. And the phone call from my agent was, "Listen, you're still." This is what you're still in the mix. Yeah. You're still in the mix, but it's probably not going to go your way. I was really, and there are some shows that you're like, oh my God! And while you're auditioning, you fall in love with the material, and you start to fall deeper in love as you move along in the process. And you're like, oh God, this is really going to hurt if I don't get it because I really love this. This is going to really hurt. And so that's where I was. I was really crestfallen.
Mark Shaman talked about this with us, where with his ridiculous resume, when Mary Poppins Returns was going to be a movie, basically had to throw his name into the ring. He didn't get approached to do it. He heard it was happening. Wow. And he's talked about it on here too, that Mary Poppins for him was the most, that was his childhood. Everything he loves about theater, he learned from Mary Poppins. That was the most amazing. So when the movie was happening, he said I heard it was happening. They didn't have a composer yet. And he said I threw my name in the ring, and he said, and then I had to just wait to find out if I got it.
Oh my God.
And he was the thought of not getting it was literally unbearable. Because he wanted to do it so badly, and it was so personal. And then he said of course he got to do it, and it was all okay. And then he got 2 Oscar nominations from it. But it was fascinating to hear that even on the creative side, we all experience this.
Totally. And,
it's not just actors.
Totally. There's a great story about Steve Martin when they were doing all the Father of the Bride remakes, and they approached him and they said, tell us who you want. And he said, Diane Keaton, of course. And they were like, oh no, she's had 2 really bad movies and she's box office poison. I mean, you're talking about Diane friggin' Keaton.
Hall, right.
You're talking about Diane Keaton, who, as it turns out, he said, I'm not going to do it. She's not going to do it. I want her. And so they obviously capitulated and they said, sure. And then you see her in it. You can't imagine anybody else. She's she's just so fabulous in that. It's what's really interesting is that we fall in love with this stuff, right? And there have been times that my work that I've been really, really proud of, that I've left in the audition room, is some of my work that I'm the most fond of, that I didn't even get the job.
Yeah.
Because something of whatever sides they gave me or whatever part of the script they gave me was so cool and imaginative and really neat that I was able to just sculpt and build a whole world and environment around it. And I was able to live in that for a little while. And it's interesting to me. There are some of those things I feel are really fine work or left in the room and I never got the job. And that's okay.
I
love that.
I saw a concert of Jason Robert Brown's music, and I found out in that concert, wrote an entire score to King Kong, which came to Broadway.
Right.
Jason Robert Brown was hired to write King Kong. He wrote
an entire score,
an entire show. Jason Robert Brown, who I adore,
love.
He's brilliant, and they did one of the songs. And I thought it was awesome. And I was like, oh my God. And I thought to myself, this entire score is sitting somewhere and no one's ever done it. No one else. And look, maybe for whatever reason, maybe it wasn't the right fit. Maybe it was not going to be, I don't know. But all I know is that Jason Robert Brown, who's really good, wrote an entire version of King Kong. And I thought, how many are there of these that Stephen Sondheim wrote Funny Girl. I mean, or what? It's like you don't have no idea.
You're absolutely right.
And those exist.
I know actors
Like,
get very myopic. They're like, oh, it's all about me. It's not all about you. It really, truly isn't. And the sooner that you abandon that idea, the better off you are, because everybody goes through this. And, some people will really argue with me, but I think Jason Robert Brown's, his best score is Honeymoon in Vegas.
I agree with you 100%.
Oh my God. It's the most kicking score.
It's incredible.
It's so great. And that just died such a weird, awful death.
It did.
It
really did. It did. It got like,
so
it was like
cool.
got hit by like a bus. It
really did. And
it's an amazing
And it was
score.
Downtown Broadway, and it was a Nederlander. But then again, the Nederlander had Rent in there. They had Newsies in there. People. I did a musical for Jerry Mitchell called Gotta Dance, but then it was eventually called Halftime.
Sure.
And at one point, they offered the Nederlander to Halftime, and they were like, "No, we don't want Downtown Broadway. We don't want that."
Downtown Broadway, right?
I know, it's true. You don't want to go uptown Broadway, and don't want to go downtown Broadway too far, especially for a little show like Halftime. Halftime really required a massage of a time, the correct time. And we were actually in Chicago, and we were supposed to come in 2016, but the juggernaut of Hamilton,
right.
They were like, we cannot. And we were all like, we get that.
The theater's thing about like, oh, this is a good theater, this is a bad theater. You're right, because the Nederlander, you think, oh no, we don't want that one. But then it had Rent. It's like one of the biggest hits ever.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? It's like people obviously will go there, but
they're going to go there for that, and they're going to go there for Newsies.
It's like there is something too about walking out of that Marriott marquee and walking past the theater, which is good.
I'm telling you, it really is. 46th Street, 44th Street. I mean, the 45th Street. That's incredible.
And east of Broadway.
That's hard too. The Belasco, which is a great theater.
It's a great theater.
And
I like all those things.
Avenue.
I like the Lyceum, is amazing, and the Court. I've always liked too.
The Court. I saw the Heiress there with Cherry Jones.
I've seen like a million things there because it's only. What did Nathan Lane said about Manhattan Theater Club? It sleeps 700 comfortably.
That is so him. God, he's so brilliant.
Oh my God.
He's so brilliant.
I think. Are you doing self-tapes right now?
Yeah.
Now, what is that?
I don't think very well.
No one is. We just talked about this with our resident therapist.
Right.
What is...
well, I have a ring light, and I have the little stand that the phone goes into, and...
Well, you're doing it better than most, then, I think.
And then I look at it, and I'm like, oh, that lighting is really peculiar, and I don't really know how to remedy that, and then I'll make the same mistake again, But I was just last week I did one, and my girlfriend left because she had to go get her kids, and I was like, that's okay, and I didn't even view it, but I was pretty confident, whatever, and then I look at it, and my slating isn't at the camera. It's like over here. So I'm like off camera, and I look like I'm insane. Not even like addressing, like talking to the slate and da-da-da. And then I move into the material.
We have to get out of self-tapes, though. And here's the reason. I've been watching self-tapes, and I feel that, this is just me, the people that are good on stage, even our best, are sometimes, not always, not good on camera. And that might be true. And that's what I know it's true.
Yeah.
Some of them are. Like there's plenty, like Mary Louise Parker, just saw her. She's really good on both. That's just her. Yeah. There's a lot of people. But there's some people who really are amazing on stage who just really aren't good on camera. Well, that's just inevitable.
Yeah, I think that's
and I'm
true.
like, we are auditioning for a live medium. I don't want to see it on camera.
And I've always taught this to students, even if you're in the theater, just remember that your proscenium is here. It really isn't, but this is what they're going to look at in the room. They're really going to look at this. They're going to look at this because it's a whole product, and we know that. And, if you're like me, you gesticulate all the time. I'm rarely still. So, but...
you've auditioned because you've done 20 years on Broadway in a number of shows, more than 20 years. But, were you auditioning those entire times you were on Broadway, or did you say, I'm on Les Mis, I'm not coming in for an audition every day?
Well, to a degree, because my son was young at the time, so it was like this brilliant show to have and whatever.
Right.
But there were a few things I auditioned for.
You weren't going to leave,
no.
but were you still auditioning?
To a degree, yeah, because I really had I really wanted to be in Phantom. So for 5 years in a row, I went to the open calls for Phantom. And I never got called back. And on that 5th year, bingo, I got called back and I got offered to go out on tour.
Really?
And I said at the callback when they offered, I said, I can't. I'm in Les Mis. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we really love you and blah, 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 you know, da, da. So somehow that itch got satisfied a little bit. But I did audition for certain things. But more importantly, particularly during that 10 years in Les Mis, for whatever reason, it was a blessing, but like shocking to a degree. How many workshops, not workshops, because at that time there were readings that you did for like $100. How many readings of different things that made it to Broadway that I did that I never got cast in?
Yeah. I imagine that happens, though, with all of the greats, including stars.
It's so nice to say.
It's true. I think that people like our principals in the readings, and like they did it, and they got a name for the reading, but then they did do it on Broadway. That happens all the time.
I think it does too. I think it happens much more than we realize. So
because we don't know.
But it's like an embarrassing list, but that's okay, because you know what? It also is. It's like a great thing too, because you realize, people really they want you for that process, and quite frankly, that's what I do really well. I do process.
Now, did you? I have one. I just have to ask this. Did you do Les Mis when it was longer than 3 hours?
Yeah.
How long was it when it was like original OG Les Mis?
It was 3.5 hours.
It was really 3.5.
Yeah, we were done at 11:30.
So the thought of that is so unbearable. I can't even put it into words.
That's a lot of Les Mis.
It's a lot of anything.
But boy, everybody, it's the world's most, favorite musical or whatever they say it is. But it really is. Unbelievable the amount of people that constantly came to it.
Because it is a great show. Now, it is. I think it's a great show. What do I know? Did you do 8 shows a week?
Yeah.
3.5 hours. So a 2-show day was at 2. You did a 2 p.m.
And
you
8.
ended at 5:30. So you're like almost at half hour by the time you get out of the costume.
Almost, yeah. And I do believe that union-wise, the way it worked also for the crew, because they have to. Because they need to do things at an hour before a half hour,
yeah.
So they have a meal penalty. It was a costly venture to have a 3.5 hour show. It was a costly venture. So
3.5, and then the second one ended at 11:30. That is so.
Yeah,
long.
we'd all get out onto 8th Avenue, and you have to remember this is 1990 when it was like a real terrible area down there. And when the theaters shut down and everybody were on their way home, we were only ones left, and we'd all go out to the 104 and wait on 8th Avenue for the 104 to get uptown and get out of there.
Yeah, that's.
It was really dodgy. It was dodgy.
Did you like being in it?
Oh, absolutely. I really
even
did.
though it was long, it was.
Well, I started out, and then a few years into it. Stage management said to me, would you like to be the internal swing? Because you just know so much.
Right.
I was like, yeah, it'd be great. And then I took a leave of absence and went and did A Christmas Carol. And when I came back, there was an injury with one of our swings. And stage management said to me, Mary Beth said to me, would you be the swing? And I was the swing for like a year. And that was another thing that was great. And then they did the whole thing where they fired everybody. You know that whole story, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because Cameron had deep pockets, and he was able to flush the cast out, and he kept like 6 of us or something.
So you were one of the ones they kept and they fired everybody? Oh, wow. Because I heard this story where they fired the whole cast of Les Mis.
This is really...
And you were one of the ones that survived. Yeah. I didn't know that.
This is a really quick, interesting story. So John Caird the way it was presented to us is company management gave us letters. And within the letter, it said, we would like for you to stay, or we're paying you out of your contract. So within my letter, it says, we would like for you to stay. John Caird had put a letter in there, and he said, would you please call me at this number in London? I was like, okay. So the next day, yes, it was the next day. The next day I called John, and I said, John, hi. He said, how did everything go? And he said, I said, well, it was rough. It's a lot of people that, want to keep those jobs and whatnot. So he said, well, Madeleine, the reason I wanted to talk to you was because I want your new position in the show to be as the resident director.
Really?
And I said, pardon me? He said, yes, I'm going to hire a resident director to keep, the quality of the content and everything. And I think you'd be great at it. And I literally I couldn't have said it quick enough. I said, I'm the wrong girl for the job. I'm absolutely the wrong girl. Now, some people might have jumped at that opportunity and
Yeah.
said, oh my God, look what they want me to do. You really got to know what you're right for and what you're not right for. You really have to have a good self-knowledge of that. And I said, oh, I am so not your girl for that. I can be your dance captain, but I'm not the right person for this at all. He was like, oh, okay. And they did a whole shopping around to find.
You might be the first person who's ever turned down something that but good for you for knowing.
Well, I knew it. But I also knew that, once you step into that zone,
that's who
to
you
go
are.
back into acting was really going to, and within like a split second, that was clear to me. I was like, ooh, that's not going to happen.
I can't thank you enough for being on here. The truth is, we could sit here and talk for 6 hours.
We could. There's so much
easily.
to talk about.
The cameras are gonna go off. We're gonna keep talking. But thank you so much for being on Dental Podcast.
I know. Thanks.
Featuring.
Look at my teeth. They're gorgeous.
Look at these teeth.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're amazing.
Thanks for
We'll
having
see
me
you
here, too.
in less than 5 years.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
In the unlikely event you've enjoyed what you've watched today, please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on social media at Patten Disregard. Would you like to play a game?
Oh, yeah.
It's time to play Who Said It? Mussolini or an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire? Okay, so in this game, I'm going to read you things that were either said by, these are actual quotes from dictator Mussolini, or things that I actually heard said by an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire to someone in the audience.
An usher.
An usher.
Okay, not patron, an usher.
No, this is what the usher said to
usher.
a patron. Okay, so it's either Mussolini, and these are all real. Either Mussolini said this, or I heard this from an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay. The truth is that people are tired of liberty.
That sounds like an usher.
That was an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire.
Excellent.
Yes. I trust no one, not even myself.
Mussolini.
That was Mussolini.
Absolutely, yeah.
I am making superhuman efforts to educate the people. When they have learned to obey, they will believe what I tell them.
That sounds like Mussolini.
That's Mussolini, but you can't really tell.
Well, no, that's true. That's true.
Okay, I have one more.
Okay.
You may not ask that of me or anyone else in uniform.
Oh, that's an usher.
That's an usher. This is how.
Uniform.
Yes.
Anyone else in uniform?
Yes.
I
Oh,
said-
actually, I have one more.
Okay.
The function of a citizen and a soldier are inseparable.
That's got to be Mussolini.
It's both. No, just kidding. Okay, no, that's actually Mussolini. But oh my God.
Oh my God, I got them all right.
This has been an episode of Who Said It? Mussolini or an usher at Mrs. Doubtfire? You did very well.